Assalamu alaikum. Okay, hopefully third time is the charm. I'm sorry about this. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's my laptop. So I'm using a different computer right now. But can everyone hear me now? I see that the sound is coming on over here. No. Is it working? No. Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Right. I apologize. I don't know what happened. Perhaps it was the laptop. So I just I'm on another computer. So inshallah, hopefully everything should be fine now, and we don't come across any technical difficulties. I apologize. Okay, so I did receive a few questions. The first question was related to Quran Khani, recitation of Quran when a person passes away. So when a person passes away, it's common amongst the subcontinent that people, they'll get together in the masjid, they'll recite Quran, and subsequently they'll make dua. So what is the ruling according to Sharia? One of my teachers when I was in Darul Uloom Karachi, one of my teachers by the name of Mufti Abdul Rauf Sakarwi, he wrote a book on this, Murawwaja Quran Khani ke Ahkam. So at the end of the book, he did conclude that it's permissible, but with certain conditions. And I think this is where the problem lies, that when the conditions are not observed and when people start thinking that something which is okay becomes sunnah, that's when the problem, that's where problems arise, when people start thinking that something which is mubah and permissible becomes a sunnah. So Quran Khani, Quran recitation, it falls under a broad principle, which is called Ihda'u Thawab lil Mayyit, which is gifting reward to the deceased. And generally this chapter, it comes under the chapter of Al-Hajj Anil Ghayr, that performing Hajj as a substitute for another person. So a person who is unable to perform Hajj for whatever reason, or has not performed Hajj, and he passed away in that condition where he didn't perform Hajj. So to do Hajj on that person's behalf, is it something that is permissible? So classical scholars, they recognized that this is something permissible, and the thawab and the reward of that Hajj will benefit the person who has passed. So from this, they extrapolate other things, such as recitation for the deceased. So reading Quran for the one who has passed and gifting the reward of that Quran to the person who has passed. This is something that scholars have recognized as permissible. As a matter of fact, Abdullah, I believe it was Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anh, that each Eid al-Adha, every Eid al-Adha, he would sacrifice one animal for himself and his family, and he would sacrifice, and this was after the demise of the Prophet ﷺ. So he would sacrifice an animal for his family, and he would sacrifice one animal for the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was not at that time, he had passed by that time. So from this we understand that ihda'u thawab, rewarding, giving reward and conveying reward and sending reward to the one who is deceased, this is something that is permissible. It's not something which is bid'ah. Bid'ah, the term bid'ah, it arises when people start considering a permissible act to be sunnah. right? Where people start coming to the masjid and they assume that, you know what, we have to read Quran no matter what, that we have to recite the Quran no matter what. And if we don't recite the Quran, and if we don't complete the Quran, then somehow we are deficient in our virtuous deed, in our virtuous action. So this has to be remembered, that when we read the Quran in the masjid, we read it with the purpose of not completing the Quran. That's not a requisite. What the objective is to read the Quran however much is possible and gift that to the one who has passed, right? So when they start thinking that this is something that's necessary, we have to do it, this is where issues arise, and people start saying that such and such thing is considered a bid'ah, it's reprehensible, it's not something that is permissible. So the summarization is that as long as a person doesn't consider it necessary, a requisite, it's permissible to come to the masjid to recite Quran however much is possible, and then gift that reward to the one who has passed. And then subsequently you can make dua as well. One of the sunnats, and this is mentioned in the Musnad of Darimi, rahimahullah. Darimi was a great muhaddith, a 3rd century muhaddith, a great scholar. And in his book, in his compilation of hadith, Imam Darimi rahimahullah, he mentions a narration of Anas radiallahu an. So Anas radiallahu an, his habit was that whenever he would complete the Quran, whenever Anas radiallahu an would complete the Quran, he would gather his family members together and he would subsequently make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. So making dua after recitation of Quran, collective dua after recitation of Quran, this is something praiseworthy. This is something that is good. And it is the action of a Sahabi. It is the action of Anas radiallahu anh, who most certainly saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or he witnessed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam doing exactly that. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, as far as Quran Khani is concerned, another thing that becomes an issue is that when people start bringing food to the masjid, the person who has passed away, it's a person shouldn't feel obliged, the family shouldn't feel obliged to bring food to the masjid simply because people are reading the Quran, right? Reading the Quran, this is a praiseworthy act, this is a meritorious act, it's a virtuous act, and it's sufficient that a person reads the Quran, gifts the reward to the deceased, and leaves the masjid. It isn't even a requisite to stay for the dua. Whoever is there at the time, they can make dua. There's no problem in that, in making dua. But many people, they start thinking that, if I don't say, then I'm doing something wrong. If I don't stay, then perhaps my action is incomplete. So these are the things that make a permissible act into a bid'ah. And the definition of bid'ah is something that needs to be understood. It's to innovate something in deen which is not part of deen. This is the ta'rif and definition of what constitutes a bid'ah. So al-ihdath fi deen ma laysa fi deen. That to create something, or to innovate something, or to concoct something that becomes part of deen when it was never sanctioned by Allah. It was never sanctioned by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Having said all of this, the summarization of Quran Khani is that it's permissible as long as a person doesn't consider this to be sunnah. As long as a person reads the Quran, gifts the reward to the one who has passed, makes dua, and leaves. And he doesn't consider this to be from the fara'id. He doesn't consider this to be from the sunnah. This is something that is permissible. There is nothing wrong in reading Quran or performing any virtuous deed and gifting the rewards of that deed to the person who has passed. And I've mentioned that this comes under a broad category of ihda'u thawab lil mayyit, that gifting the rewards a person receives by performing a virtuous act to the one who has passed. Continuing on, second question. If there are any follow-up questions, just post them and then inshallah I'll get to them. Continuing on, minimum requirements for Jum'ah. This is a common issue now since majority of us were doing Jum'ah at home. So there's very few people who are coming to the masjid at the moment. So minimum requirements for Jum'ah is that as long as, first of all, there is a substitute for Jum'ah. Just because we can't do Jum'ah doesn't necessarily mean that, it's the end of the world. Many people, this is what they're saying, that it's the end of the world. That's not the case. This has happened before where masajid, they were locked due to plagues or whatever. Not locked per se, but people, they were not coming to the masajid. And as a result, there was no Jum'ah because it was simply too dangerous to offer Jum'ah. So as far as Jum'ah is concerned, there is a substitute, and that substitute is the Dhuhr prayer. So if you are unable to perform Jum'ah for whatever reason, and inshallah, I'm looking at all of the questions that are being posted. I will get to them after, inshallah, I respond to these questions that I received earlier. So as far as Jum'ah is concerned, there is a substitute, and that substitute is Dhuhr. So if a person is unable to pray Jum'ah for whatever reason, first and foremost, it is impermissible to miss Jum'ah when the situation is all good. So when things are going well, when things are going the way they should be going, it's impermissible to miss the Jum'ah. One should not miss the Jum'ah, right? And there is no leeway for missing the Jum'ah unless there is a Shar'i udhr, unless there is a Shar'i reason for that person to miss the Jum'ah. Now, if there is a Shar'i reason, if there is a reason which the Sharia has considered a legitimate reason to miss Jum'ah, such as what is going on currently. So this current pandemic, it's unwise for people to get together in a place where congregational prayers take place and offer Jum'ah, because there's a high likelihood and possibility of a person contracting illness, getting sick, passing it on to others. I mean, that's not something that anybody in good conscience they would want to live with. That they have the symptoms, they may not show the symptoms, but unknowingly they're giving symptoms to people who are susceptible to getting sick, who are immunocompromised, and who have underlying health issues. So in this climate, it's unwise to perform Jumu'ah in the masjid. If we are unable to perform Jumu'ah, we can offer the Dhuhr at home. Now, if we want to do Jumu'ah at home, then it is permissible to do Jumu'ah at home. The minimum requirements for Jumu'ah is that there should be 4 males. So one khatib, one person who delivers the khutbah, and the khutbah is very short. Nowadays, I'm leading Jumu'ah for the past, I believe, 2-3 weeks with 4 people. Myself, my son, Ayman, our caretaker, and Mufti Abdurrahman. So there's 4 people for Jumu'ah currently. And the khutbah that I recite, it's a very short khutbah. Jumu'ah takes no longer than 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes maximum. And usually our Jumu'ah, it takes about half an hour, where majority of the people, they come at 1 o'clock and they sit there for approximately half an hour for Jumu'ah. Nowadays our Jumu'ah is 5 minutes. So, and that's just for the purpose of staying safe, of being safe, making sure that everybody immediately leaves after the Jumu'ah. So 4 are the minimum. 4 men are the minimum for Jumu'ah to be conducted at home. So you need 3 muqtadis, 3 people who are offering salat behind the imam, and you need the imam to deliver the khutbah and lead the salah. So this is the minimum requirements for Jumu'ah. So it can be prayed at home. To answer the question, yes, the Jumu'ah can be prayed at home. It is permissible to pray at home. Second question is that, can we do a virtual khutbah? Can we do a virtual khutbah? I mean, one of the issues, there has been I'm sure many people must have received this clip, but there is a scholar in Pakistan by the name of Mufti Zarwali Khan. So he runs a very famous madrasa in Karachi. So he is of the opinion that virtual Jumu'ah is permissible. I mean, this is his opinion, and I think it's an isolated opinion. Majority of the scholars in Pakistan, Mufti Taqi Sahib, Mufti Rafi Sahib, entire Darul Uloom Karachi, Bin Nouri town in Guru Mandir, all of them, Rashidiya, all of them, they have issued the Madrasa in Lahore, Jamia Ashrafia, Jamia Madaniya, Gujranwala, all of the madaris everywhere, Khairul Madaris in Multan, they have issued fatwa that Jumu'ah, virtual Jumu'ah, is not permissible because there's just so many moving parts for Jumu'ah to be correct. So the only allowance they have made is that there should be a minimum of 4 people offering Jumu'ah at home. For women, Jumu'ah is not, it's not fard on them. So this is why I've mentioned for men. So for women, Jumu'ah is not fard on them. If they decide to do Jumu'ah at home, then that's fine. There's no issue with it. But I just wanted to point out that Jumu'ah is not fard upon women. For women, for sisters, it's dhuhr. But if they opt to and if they decide to offer Jumu'ah at home behind whoever is offering Jumu'ah, then there's no issue with it. They don't have to do the dhuhr. So to answer the question, can we do a virtual Jumu'ah? No, we can't do a virtual Jumu'ah. Otherwise, I mean, there's no limitation. If we start doing virtual Jumu'ah, then we should just sit over here or just pray at home and put the computer to live feed of Baytullah, of Makkah and Medina. All right, so just answering some of the questions over here. Brother Fahad Wahid is asking, is there approximate date of return for youth program? I mean, inshallah, as soon as the masajid open, everybody should make dua as much as possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises and removes this current pandemic from the entire ummah. It's become very lonely over here because, you know, the general interactions that we normally have, we're not having them. So it's a little bit difficult when there isn't any interaction, then it gets boring. Human beings, we're interactive by nature. We want to talk, we want to discuss, we want to interact, we want to find out, we want to get into people's business. I'm just messing around. But no, inshallah, as soon as the masjids open, then we will resume with the youth program. I know some of the board members, they did tell me that I should conduct a youth program online. So that's something, inshallah, that I'm thinking about starting. Hopefully I can do that next week, just speak about certain issues and making sure that the kids, at least, they're living a life at home which is conducive to Islamic teachings. I mean, now is the ideal time, to be honest, to learn as much as possible, because majority of us were staying at home and we have nothing to do except read the entire day. I mean, I have nothing to do except read, so I'm just reading and posting stuff on Facebook. So whatever I find interesting, I post it on Facebook. Alhamdulillah, it seems that people are benefiting. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make whatever we do beneficial for ourselves and for others. Okay, so just some questions to address. With everything going on today, it would seem as though we are getting close to the end of time. My question is, which major and minor sign of the Day of Judgment still remain? I mean, there are a lot of major signs. There are so many minor signs already around us. I mean, disobedience of parents, this is a minor sign. Then we have, you know, people vying and competing with each other when it comes to building tall buildings. These are all minor signs. As far as major signs are concerned, emergence of Dajjal, Ya'juj, Ma'juj, these are major signs. The emergence of Mahdi, these are all major signs. Isa alayhi salam's nuzul, his descent, these are major signs which are mentioned in classical books of hadith. As far as minor signs, there are so many minor signs that the Prophet ﷺ has expounded on. Sister Maliha is asking that can we do ghaibana salat janaza at home these days? According to according to the Hanafi school and the Maliki school, ghaibana salat janaza, it's not something which is sanctioned. According to Imam Shafi, according to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, they permit and they sanction salat ghaibana, absentia janaza salat. So absentia janaza salat. The Prophet ﷺ, if you think about it, the Prophet ﷺ offered janaza salat for ghaibana salat janaza, absentia janaza for Najashi, Ashama, the king of Habasha. This was done once in his entire life. And the ahadith, when you look at them, they would suggest and they would indicate that this was something that was specific for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you even look into it further, many Sahaba, they passed away outside of Medina, and never once was janaza salat done, or ghaibana salat janaza was done. I mean, according to the Hanafi school, as I said, according to the Hanafi school and the Maliki school, it's not something that they agree with. They feel that the salat janaza is a dua. It's a dua, and at the end of the day, that is exactly what salatul janaza is. It's a dua. So a person is obligated to just make dua for the one who has passed. If salatul janaza cannot be performed for whatever reason, for example, in present climate, salatul janaza cannot be performed for whatever reason, then perhaps there is some dispensation, there is some scope for doing ghaibana salat janaza, absentia salatul janaza. But that's only in the scenario if there is no one there to offer janaza on the deceased. I mean, that was the case with Najashi. There wasn't anyone there to offer salatul janaza, and this is why the Prophet ﷺ did it. And you have to recall that the Sahaba that were residing there, they were refugees over there, they had sought asylum over there, they left, and Ashama was the only one in Ethiopia who had accepted Islam, and this was the reason why the Prophet ﷺ performed absentia salatul janaza. So in our situation, alhamdulillah, it has not yet reached, and it will not reach, we should make dua, it will not reach the extent where we have to do salatul janaza. There will always be someone to do janaza upon any Muslim who has passed, inshallah. Is there a sunnah dua for this virus or any disease? I believe I mentioned it in one of my previous speeches. I did request our stewardship to post those du'as on Facebook. I sent quite a number of du'as. Inshallah, they will post it. If not, I will send it to you. How do women do Jumu'ah at home? So as far as sisters doing Jumu'ah at home, if there are men who are doing Jumu'ah at home, so if there are 4 men, as I said, the requisite is there needs to be 4 men in addition to the khatib, so 4 in total, and women can offer the salat with the men, so similar to how we do it, the sufuf, and the rows are in the back. So if we are 2 people, 1 man and 1 woman, in that case, you're going to do dhuhr. You're going to do dhuhr. You can do congregational dhuhr prayer, where the man, he will stand and the woman will stand one saf behind. So 1 saf behind is where the woman will stand. Typically, the wife, daughters, they will stand 1 saf behind. So in this way, you will get the reward for congregational prayers. When will the masjid be open? This is a good question. And this question is something, unfortunately, I can't answer because I honestly don't know how long things are going to last. Our board and our stewardship, they would know better as to when the masjid will open. All we can do at this point is make dua as much as possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lift this pandemic from our midst, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open the masajid before the month of Ramadan. Because I mean, when you read the news, it seems that majority of us will be spending Ramadan at home. So I mean, this is individual ibadah, private ibadah. This is the best. This is the best worship. That when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in private. Many of us, we are of the habit. I mean, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in hadith that the fard salah, that should be performed at the masjid. But all other salawat, our tahajjud prayers, our nafil prayers, our sunnah prayers, all of those prayers, it's preferable to perform them at home. I mean, one should do those prayers at home. Many of us, we do those prayers in the masjid, which is fine because we don't have time at home. But ibadah is a very private thing, and for many of us, we will look at private ibadah as an opportunity to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, just because we can't, I mean, there is a possibility that Taraweeh might not be performed at the masjid. So that doesn't mean that we don't do Taraweeh. We can still do Taraweeh. We would still have to do Taraweeh at home. It's a good thing to do Taraweeh. And the Prophet ﷺ mentions in hadith, Man qama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi, that whoever stands in the month of Ramadan with iman, with faith, with hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah will forgive them, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive that person's sins, are forgiven. So we should make it a point to stand in Taraweeh in the month of Ramadan. If we can't do it in the masjid, then at the least we should do it in our homes. Okay. If you are leading salah and forget a wajib and no one reminds you until after you say salam, should you repeat salah? This is a good question. That if you are leading salah and you forget a wajib for whatever reason, and nobody reminds you until after you say salam, should you repeat it? So there's two scenarios over here. Either you remember before you walk away, or you don't remember and you walk away. So if you remember before walking away and you have not talked to anyone, then you simply go into you offer the two prostrations of omission, which is called sajda sahw. The two prostrations of omission, which is sajda sahw. And if you turn away and you walk out, you turn away from jihatul qibla, from the direction of the qibla, then you would have to, it would be preferable for you to repeat the entire salah as long as you are within the time. As long as you are within the time. Once that time leaves, once that time is no longer there, then you cannot repeat the salah. At that point, you cannot repeat the salah. It's wajib to repeat the salah as long as you are within that time period and that time span. Which country, nation outside of Asia, Africa adapted Islam into their beliefs? I mean, you have Malaysia and you have Indonesia who have done that. So there's a book written by Sir Arnold, I believe. And Sir Arnold, he's mentioned that how the people of Cyprus, I mean, this is an island right in the middle. I mean, it's near Turkey. You have Indonesia, which is the largest Muslim population, Malaysia, all of these Pacific islands, even Singapore. So over they adopted certain Islamic beliefs. I mean, Islamic beliefs, I would assume that I mean, let me start with this. First and foremost, Islam is not predatory, where it goes into a region and just hijacks their way of living. No, that's not what Islam is about. Everybody is different. Everybody lives in different regions. People have their own customs. Islam comes and just modifies beliefs. It modifies customs. I mean, if for example, hypothetical situation over here, if in Alaska, right, let's say there was nobody in Alaska. I mean, there was no Islam in Alaska, and Islam came into Alaska. It isn't as if Islam is going to say that, hey, you know what you're wearing is haram. You can't wear these clothing. You can't wear this clothing because the clothing that you're wearing is haram. You have to adopt the Islamic dress. If people start adopting the Islamic dress and people think that the Islamic dress is something specific to Saudi Arabia, then the people of Alaska, they're in big trouble. I mean, you have to wear heavy layers over there, you're going to die. So Islam it didn't come into any region to hijack their way of living. Yes, I mean, Islam did come into regions, and it modified their ways of thinking. It modified some of their customs. If their customs were something that was not conducive to Islam, or their customs were problematic, or they were associated with shirk. So Brother Muhammad Uppal, he's Jazakallah khairan, he's answered the question. And what about i'tikaf during these times? So i'tikaf during these times, i'tikaf is performed at the masjid. For women, i'tikaf is performed at home. For men, it is performed at the masjid. Inshallah, I mean, at the least, there's always going to be someone who is offering salah at the masjid. Yes, officially the doors of the masajid, they are closed, but there are select personnel who are performing their salawat at home. Who are performing the salawat at the masjid, and inshallah who will be performing i'tikaf in the masjid, just to make sure that there is someone at the masjid. Question from a brother not on this chat: what do you think about buying, drinking alcohol for sanitization purpose for COVID-19? Buying and drinking alcohol, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the prohibition of this in the Quran. So buying and drinking alcohol, even for sanitization purposes, this is not permissible. And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not put cure to any sickness in haram. Yes, this hadith is subject to heavy interpretation, but the gist of the hadith is that there is no cure in haram. But let me tell you a story about this. There's an interesting story that I recall since this question has been brought up. So in the time of, I believe it was Nuruddin Zangi. It was Nuruddin Zangi's son. So Nuruddin Zangi's son, he became sick. And and the physicians of his time, he went to various physicians, and all of the physicians said that, look, the cure to your sickness, I'm not sure what the sickness was, so don't ask me. The book just mentioned that he was sick. And so what happened was he went to various physicians, and all of the physicians, they told him that you're going to need to drink alcohol. You'll need to drink alcohol, and that's the only way. And alcohol in extreme situations, if it's for the purpose of seeking a cure, it might be permissible to the extent where it doesn't make a person inebriated, drunk. It might be permissible. So anyway, this was an extreme situation, and Nuruddin Zangi's son, he consulted with the physicians. The physician said, this is what you're going to have to do. So the next step was consult with the scholars. So he consulted with the scholars, and they gave him jawaz. They gave him the go ahead that, this is something permissible. It's to save your life. Go ahead and do it. So he was still a little bit perplexed, and he goes to one of the scholars by the name of Allama Kasani. Allama Kasani is a famous Damascene scholar. His wife was a faqiha. His wife was a very great jurist. Her name was Fatima. And he himself was a very great jurist. The father-in-law was a jurist. Very romantic story about Kasani. His father wanted his daughter to get married, and he didn't want anyone to marry his daughter, because his daughter was a very great jurist of Islam. Her name was Fatima. And so he had written a primer on jurisprudence. So he told his students to write a commentary on his primer. So all of the students, they wrote a commentary. And this Kasani, Abu Bakr Kasani, his book was so impressive that his future father-in-law said that, you know what, I'm going to take this book, and this will be the dowry for my daughter, and you can have my daughter in marriage. So the people of that time, they would say that sharraha kitabahu wa zawwaja ibnatahu, that he provided commentary for his father-in-law's book, and then he got the girl. So he got the daughter. And so she was a very great jurist, and when their graves are still there, their graves are still in Damascus. When she passed away, Abu Bakr Kasani, his heart was broken. He was heartbroken. He passed away about 6 months after. He couldn't live without her, and he was buried right next to her. So their graves are called Qabru Zawj wa Zawjatihi, the grave of the husband and the wife. And this sometimes happens when you have, when people are close to their spouses, then they will die. When one of them passes, then the other one will pass immediately, because they can't live without one another. So anyway, back to the story. Abu Bakr Kasani, he said that yes, in extreme circumstances it is permissible. So then this person asked, Nuruddin Zangi's child, he's 18 years old, he asked that if it's destined for me to die, am I going to die even if I drink this? Right? So Abu Bakr Kasani said that if it's your destiny to die, you're going to die even if you drink this alcohol. So he said that, you know what, in that case, I don't want to do something that is categorically forbidden by Allah Azza wa Jal. Why should I do it? I don't want to meet Allah in a state where I have done something haram. So he opted not to drink, and he passed away from that disease, whatever his ailment was. So the point being is, in our situation, I mean, there are other cures actually there is no cure for COVID-19, or nothing that I have read. I mean, this is a question that is better answered by our physicians in the community. So if they want to share, then by all means do that. Okay. Okay, so what is the etiquette of reminding the person who is leading salah of a mistake they have made? So this could be there's two scenarios to this, that either it's in the salat where a person, if a person who's reciting the Quran has recited something wrong, then the person in the back will give luqma. He will do talqeen. So talqeen means that he will remind that person that you have made a mistake over here. And then there's the second scenario is after salat, if a mistake was made. Now, if that mistake was so severe where it changes the meaning of the Quran, then yes, you're going to have to repeat the salah. But if that mistake was corrected within the salah, then there's no issue. There's no problem. The salat is valid. Okay. So 60-70% alcohol content is required to kill corona. I mean, you still have, I think, synthetic alcohol. Synthetic alcohol is not the same as alcohol which is used in modern day breweries and stuff, the alcohol content. So that alcohol, I mean, 60-70% synthetic alcohol. You can use rubbing alcohol to sanitize yourself. There's no issue. So rubbing alcohol, synthetic alcohol, there's no issue with that. Are there any special ibadat per se? I mean, ibadat, the best ibadah a person can do is nafil salah, supererogatory prayers, recitation of Quran, dhikr. These are common ibadat that a person can do throughout the entire day. Okay. During these times, can you give money for keeping rosas now or wait for Ramadan? Yes, as a matter of fact, you can do that. You can give if you feel that you are unable, or if your physician has told you that you are unable to keep fasts for whatever reason, and it is going to be impossible for you to make up these fasts in the near future as well, then yes, you can give fidya now. So the fidya now is about $7, $8. It might be cheaper in Pakistan. Pakistan is probably going to be cheaper, so you may want to ask around in Pakistan as well. But over here, I believe minimum amount is $3, $4, and maximum, depending on what you're using, I mean, if you're going to use ajwa dates, right, which is approximately 2.2 kilograms, then you're looking at $50 per person. But you can use the minimum. Minimum fidya is you can say about $5 to $7. So prescription for 15th Sha'ban. I mean, Sha'ban, I think it's Monday, Tuesday, the 15th of Sha'ban is next Thursday. So 15th of Sha'ban is next Thursday. Simple procedure for ibadah is to read Isha and Fajr with congregation. Very easy. Read Isha and Fajr with congregation. Read some Quran. After Isha, you can do tahajjud. Many people think that it's a record that tahajjud salat, the tahajjud time, it's specific to the third part of the night. That's not the case. You can do tahajjud immediately after Isha. It's just virtuous to do tahajjud at that time because it's difficult to get up at that time. Otherwise, it's fine. It's fine to do tahajjud immediately after Isha with the niyat of tahajjud, that I'm doing 2 rakats of tahajjud. There's no issue with it. Okay. What is the name of the Arabic substance that disinfects the house? This answer was questioned before, but I forgot. So I did mention it in my khutbah. I believe it's luban. It's called luban. And I think Dr. Hadi would remember this better. I mentioned it in my khutbah. And I asked Ayman as well if this was used. And I'm not sure what his answer was. I forgot his answer. But I did deliver a khutbah on this 3 weeks ago about luban and the English equivalent of it and how it was used in classical in medicine in the 4th and 5th centuries. They used to disinfect the corridors and the wards and stuff. But forgive me, I have to look at it again. Okay. So why does the Quran talk about Isa alayhi salam more often than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of similarities with Isa alayhi salam and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Isa alayhi salam was the final prophet for Banu Israel, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final prophet for this ummah. So Isa alayhi salam was the final prophet for Banu Israel, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the final prophet for this ummah. So Isa alayhi salam is mentioned, Musa alayhi salam is mentioned because there's a lot of similarities between our ummah and their ummah. Yes, Sister Malia, it's fine. Last year, if it was $10, yes, by all means, $10 is the minimum. Yes, Jazakallah khairan. Styrax benzoin. Oh, barakallahu fikum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward Dr. Minhas. Luban was Styrax benzoin. I think that's the pronunciation. So yeah, if back to the question, yeah, $10 is minimum. If that is the case, and if that is the fidya amount for each fast, then by all means give $10. It might be cheaper in Pakistan than $10. So if you want to give in Pakistan, that's fine. If you want to give over here, that's fine as well. Okay. I think 1 hour is up. I apologize today. There was some technical difficulties with the whole sound issue. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. Inshallah, I will be conducting tafsir tomorrow. I will be going over in depth Surah Al-Fatiha. Everyone is requested to participate and benefit. This is one way of staying connected to the masjid, staying connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, staying connected to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I try to put something beneficial on my Facebook account as much as possible. So there's Urdu content there, there's Arabic content there, there's English content there. So whoever speaks Arabic, then alhamdulillah, they can benefit from the Arabic content. Whoever speaks Urdu, they can benefit from the Urdu content. Whoever speaks English, they can benefit from the English content. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us tawfiq and understanding. Make dua for the entire ummah. Make dua for everyone in the healthcare industry. Subhanallah, I mean, for them it's a daily struggle to pry themselves away from their families and to selflessly serve strangers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect their families. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them abundantly in this world and in the hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate our our situations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve us of this pandemic. Those who are sick, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of them shifa kamila, ajila mustamir. Jazakumullah khairan. Yes, inshallah, brother. Same time, 8 o'clock. We'll start at 8 o'clock tafsir. 8 o'clock. We'll start tomorrow. Hopefully, where there's no hitch and everything goes the way it's supposed to go. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.